This conference will now be recorded.
Thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Derek Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Greenville First Steps, and we are here to talk a little bit about the Greenville County CARES Act funding that is available for short-term school-age care in Greenville County. Just an overview before we get started. For those of you who are not familiar with the CARES Act, this was federal emergency funds that were made available as a result of COVID-19. There are some pretty narrowly defined categories of approved expenses, and everything has to be COVID-19 related. The purpose of these funds was not meant to help businesses offset lost revenues, but really just to help businesses recoup unbudgeted expenses that may have hit your organization as a result of having to address COVID-19 related expenses. There are a number of fund managers around the county that Greenville County Council has approved to distribute CARES Act funds within the county. Greenville County Council received about $91 million, and you can see here a breakdown of where those dollars went to small businesses, to minority small businesses, to health and human services, county government, municipal governments, and the Housing and Child Care Fund. Some of you may be familiar with the $1.71 million that was awarded for child care providers, which Greenville First Steps has helped Greenville County administer on their behalf. There is now an additional $2 million that's available for school-age, short-term, full-day care. Essentially, this money has been set aside for organizations that want to provide school-age, full-day care to help families return to work when their kids may not be at school 5 days a week. So as the school district kind of shifts from a 0 days a week face-to-face instruction to 1 day a week to 2 days a week, we are all aware that that puts a significant burden on families that need to return to work. And so this plan was really designed as a way to help the public and private sectors work together to support families that need to return to work and also provide safe and appropriate care for school-age kids. We're going to talk a little bit about the funding that is available and what you can do to apply. There is about $2 million available, and the goal is to ensure that there are 9,000 children served in Greenville County who are school-age kids. 1.3 million of that is for provider support, so that's money to go directly to maybe a licensed childcare provider or an after-school provider, a church or a community partner that want to open full-day care for kids. About 140,000 is available for enrichment programming. This is basically supports to help providers have other activities to do besides maybe the online learning that's going to be provided through the district. There's about $375,000 available for workforce supports, which are essentially scholarships for essential workers. And then there's some other resources available to help assist providers and to help recruit families. And we're going to talk through each of those categories. So first, this large bucket, the 1.3 million, is for provider supports. So what we will ask providers to do is to look at their daily capacity for eligible school-age students. And as you look at your facility, your daily capacity should be measured based on the square footage that's available for your program. And if you have any questions, obviously you can email us at the email address below and we can help you calculate your capacity. But if you're a provider that has a capacity to serve 1 to 6 children, then you're going to be able to apply for $2,000 per site. And our goal is to have about 40 sites that can do that. You can see here if it's 6 to 29 students, then you're talking about $5,000 a site that's available. 30 to 60 students, about $7,500 a site that's available. And if it's more than 61 students, then it's $12,500 per site that's available. And you can see there the number of projected sites. A couple of clarifying things. So one is any provider that accepts these supports is going to commit to providing 20% of this allocation as financial supports to subsidize weekly child care costs for families. So if you're an organization that receives $5,000 for your site then you're going to be asked to set aside 1,000 of that 5,000 to put towards subsidizing weekly costs. So that could be that you just across the board make your whole program, $10 a week cheaper, and you've calculated that out as that's how you're going to subsidize $2,000. Or it could be that you set aside the $2,000 in a bucket for a specific family or a group of families who come in and ask for assistance. This will be documented, and we'll talk a little bit later about how to do that. But it's just really essential that you understand that if you apply for these funds, in return, you will be asked to document how you subsidized care for families that you served. And that is because none of this is our expenses that we think families really budgeted for, right? When families were creating their 12-month budget, I think very few people in January thought I need to set aside $150 to $200 a week for school age care for the months of September and October. Everyone assumed our kids would be in school 5 days a week. And it's certainly the goal for our kids to be in school 5 days a week. And these subsidies are really meant as a bridge between where we are now and where we're going. The second important designation on this slide is what it means to be an eligible student. So eligible students are any children who are 5K to 5th grade students currently enrolled in Greenville County Schools or in a South Carolina approved charter school located in Greenville County. You can be enrolled in the virtual program. You can be enrolled in the traditional face-to-face programs. You can be enrolled in one of our local charter schools that's run through the district, like Langston, or you can be enrolled in one of the charter schools that's run through the South Carolina Public Charter School District. But in order for a child to be considered eligible to participate, to be counted in these ratios, the child must be a 5K to 5th grade student currently enrolled in Greenville County Schools. So if you are trying to count students who have removed themselves from the district or are now going to be homeschooled, those students wouldn't be counted. If you're trying to count students who have removed themselves from the district and they're going to a private school, those students also cannot be counted. This is only for families who are currently enrolled in Greenville County Schools, either the virtual or traditional, or in one of the South Carolina approved public charter schools that are located in Greenville County. The $1.3 million is going to be provided as an advance. So you'll get 100% of these funds provided to you in advance, and they can be used for any costs related to startup or the continuation of full day services. So they can be used for staffing costs to help plan, organize, and run these programs. They can be used for facility updates. For example, you're probably going to need to look into investing in strengthening your internet signal in your facility. They can be used for program supplies or equipment. They can be used for internet. They can be used for COVID-19 related expenses. They can be used for programming. So anything that you see that's an expected cost related to serving school-age kids in a full-day program will be an allowable expense. There's an email address at the bottom of each of these slides, and if you email Zachary Hall, he can help you think through whether an expense is approved or not. Here are a couple of examples of things that are not allowable expenses. So one would be payroll expenses related to lost wages. So if you had employees who were working with you in the spring, you laid them off, they collected unemployment, and now you want to bring them back and you're going to give them all bonuses, that would not be an allowable expense. Now, if you bring them back and you put them into training and you pay them to train, then those would be considered allowable expenses. These dollars cannot be used to offset lost income. So if you are an owner of a center or a manager of a center that closed for the months of June and July, and you're just trying to cover the weekly fees that you didn't collect to maybe pay your mortgage or to pay your utilities, these dollars cannot be used to offset money that you just weren't able to collect. These monies also can't be used for expenses that were made prior to August 1st without approval. So if you were planning to deliver a service for school-age kids and you made expenses, then they can count. But if in March or April decided to renovate your bathrooms, you can't send us a receipt for that because that was an expense that was done before August 1st. If you have expenses and you can't provide us with backups or receipts, then they're not eligible. So even if there are legitimate expenses related to the startup and continuation of service, we have to have backup, we have to have receipts. Now, one thing we are going to do to make it a little easier for you is we're going to completely pay your allocation up front, and you'll have until October 31st to provide us with receipts. So hopefully this will give you the front end money to allow you to make purchases and then collect those receipts. Also, remember payroll expenses can be covered. So you can turn in payroll as an example of how you use these dollars. So because the money is funded in advance, there is going to be a request that you provide us with backup. So if you are using this money for salaries, you could either give us a payroll report, so just a copy of where you ran payroll that equals or exceeds the amount we've given you, or you can actually give us copies of timesheets, and we'll have a template online for you to find if you need a copy of a template to record that. You can use it as if you're gonna use these funds for purchases, then we would need a copy of the receipt where the purchase was made. If you're gonna use these funds to contract with a vendor, then we need a copy of the receipt where that contract was made and paid. If you're gonna use these funds, the 20% for financial assistance, then all we need you to provide for us is the parent name of the family that received financial assistance and who that the employer is for that parent. And that just helps us make sure that these dollars are being used to help families return to work. And it helps us to categorize what types of employers benefited from these services. So all of this will be covered when you get ready to report. And again, this isn't due until the end of October, but these are just to tell you up front the kind of documentation you're going to need to provide if you receive these funds for a provider. Now, in addition to those funds, there's another $375,000 that's available for financial assistance, which in this sector we call scholarships. These will be calculated as 375 $1,000 grants to serve school-age students. And those $1,000 grants are calculated at someone receiving $100 a week of assistance for 10 weeks. These grants are very limited. They are limited to essential workers who earn less than $65,000 a year. An example of an essential worker would be a healthcare worker. These salaries, the $65,000 a year, are for the employee who qualifies, not for the full family. Greenville County employees who earn less than $65,000 a year are also eligible to apply. Greenville County public school employees, both those who work for the Greenville County School District and those who work for the public charter schools who earn less than $65,000 a year, or for families who are at 300% of the federal poverty level, which for a family of four is $75,000 for the family. These families will walk into a participating site and they'll say, "Hi, my name is Derek and I'm a school district employee and I want to apply for these grants." The site will say, "Yes, you're eligible. I see that you're a district employee and you make $65,000 a year, and I have space in my center for your child." Then the site will complete an online form on behalf of the family saying the family is eligible and that there is space available. Once they submit that online form, within 24 hours, the site will be notified that the funding is available and that the family has been approved. And then that funding for a 10-week period will be sent as an advance. The site will then apply that $1,000 grant towards those students' weekly fees. So there's no need for families to contact us directly because they won't be eligible unless the site applies on their behalf. So the best thing to do is for families to go to Kidding Around Greenville, which is where the directory of all these participating sites is, find a site that's nearest them, go to that site, and the site will work to apply for these funds for you. Now, it is important to keep in mind that we're talking about 375 total grants that are available in the county. So as we look at serving 9,000 families, these grants are going to go pretty quickly. So we would encourage families and sites to apply as soon as possible. The third category of funding that's available is considered program enrichment. So we know that these students are going to be spending an incredible amount of time in these centers working on classwork, schoolwork, doing e-learning or distance learning and virtual learning. And we really want to make sure that they have a well-rounded experience. Many of these providers who are interested in providing the service may not have experience or expertise in fitness or wellness or theater or science or arts. And so the idea here is that we will contract with the Greenville Nonprofit Alliance. They will recruit enrichment partners, for example, maybe a local theater, to provide virtual or on-site theater experiences. And these sites will reserve a slot and then have a direct experience provided for their students at no cost to the provider. All of the information about how you can become an enrichment partner and how your sites can sign up for this will all be provided for you after you complete the original application process. So you've heard all of that and you're ready to make your application. It's already live. All you have to do is go to greenvillefirststeps.org/CARES Act. And there are two applications there. There is one application for early childhood preschool providers that's been live for about a month now. If you're serving preschool age kids, you should apply there. If you're serving school age kids, then you would want to go through the school age application, and that's all clearly defined on the website. Generally speaking, once you have been approved, you can expect your check to arrive within 2 weeks of approval. You can see at the bottom of every one of the pages of our presentation the email address for Zach Hall, who works for the YMCA of Greenville and is helping Greenville First Steps coordinate all of this work. There are some additional free supports that are available that we want to make sure that you know about. So YMCA of Greenville has a long history of providing high quality school age care in Greenville County. They are one of the largest and one of the most well-respected providers of school age care. And if your organization is thinking about starting up a program and you just don't know how to get started, there are going to be online and on-site supports, both to help you think through the logistics of how to run a program, think through the safety considerations that should be made as a response to COVID, help you think through how to use virtual learning. And the YMCA of Greenville, Greenville First Steps, and the Greenville School District are going to help develop all of those trainings. And once you apply to be a partner with us, then we will provide you the link to all of those free online trainings. There also is an opportunity to participate in some on-site trainings to help you kind of get started. In addition, we should have some downloadable resources that will be on the same website where you'll be able to download registration forms or waivers for families to participate. Any types of information that you might need will be available for you to download for free. We also have partnered with Kidding Around Greenville, who will take care of an online directory of all the sites. And so if you go to the Kidding Around Greenville website, there will be a directory of all the school age providers who are offering school age care. And if you sign up to participate with us, your information will be included for free in that directory. Also, they are helping lead the messaging to help families get to that directory to find you. So if you're interested in providing this service and you're just not sure how families are going to know that you're open and that you're enrolling folks, then Kidding Around Greenville will be able to provide that resource for you. A couple of expectations you should know for a provider. The first is that you have to be an eligible child care provider in good standing with DSS. So that means for us that you either need to be a licensed or registered child care provider with DSS. And those of you who are know what that means to be that. If you are not, then you have to have a certificate of temporary operation from DSS. And if you go to the website here or just Google scchildcare.org temporary permit, then you'll be able to find a form where you can apply to DSS for a waiver to offer a temporary operation of childcare for school age kids. Now, DSS is not granting temporary waivers for preschool services. You can only receive a temporary waiver to serve school age kids. The great thing about this waiver is that the DSS staff have committed to reviewing your paperwork all online, you'll be able to apply completely online. And once they review your paperwork, you should have an approval within a few weeks. So you should be able to expect to make this process um, as quick and easy as possible for you, as long as you have your paperwork ready. But until you have that permit to operate, or can demonstrate for us the license number to show that you are licensed or registered, then you will not be eligible to apply for these funds. In order to receive these funds, you also have to commit to being open or enrolling students by Labor Day. So that's just a general time commitment that in order for these programs to be up and running, we need them up and running when school starts. And so we ask that you commit to being open by Labor Day. We also ask that you provide accurate and timely information to us. So within the application and within all the follow-up reporting, we've talked about the receipts and the importance for you to provide receipts and invoices so that we can have backup for the advanced funds that we're providing for you. There also may be additional data and surveys that we're going to request just to help get some context to the impact of these funds, the number of families served, where your location is operating, maybe what businesses benefited from you being open, just some context so that Greenville County Council and so that the federal government can understand the impact that these funds have. These are, in general, the expectations of the provider. Now, we've been asked a lot of questions already, and so we've tried to capture some of them here in the FAQ, but obviously we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions. So if we don't get to your question today, just send us an email and we'll be happy to answer your questions individually. One question we're often asked is, what if we are currently closed? If you're currently closed, you can still apply for these funds as long as you plan to be open by Labor Day. Now, some of our church providers, for example, have said, well, we want to be open by Labor Day, but it's not my call. It's, the head of the church, or it's the national church representatives who are going to decide whether I get to open or not. If you think you're going to be open by Labor Day, go ahead and apply. If you end up not being open by Labor Day, we'll be checking in with you, and we can help you adjust the amount of funds you've been provided based on that circumstance. But you should go ahead and apply if you think you're going to be open by Labor Day. If you've already received EIDL funds or Triple P funds, or even if you've already received CARES Act funding for preschool services, you're still eligible to apply for these. You're eligible to apply for these funds if you're a church. We've heard from many churches that said that they felt like it was very clear that they weren't allowed to apply for CARES Act funds. That may be true for other buckets of money, but for this specific amount of money, because we're talking about a church providing a child care service, you'd be eligible to apply even if you weren't eligible for other Triple P funds. We've talked about, if you're not a licensed provider, what you should do. Really, the best thing to do is to go to the scchildcare.org website and get the information on how to become a temporary provider. With every organization, there is a what if question about how these funds can be used. And we have provided an email address for folks who can help you think through that. Certainly, we would advise you to ask us first before you spend money, rather than spending money and assuming it's okay and then asking us and finding out it's not. So we will check in with you and make sure that we're there to answer your questions. And we're there to help you think through what expenses would be the best ones to count these funds towards. We're often asked how we measure capacity. Essentially, the way we will measure capacity is that you should take the square footage of the space that has been allocated for school-age kids, and you should divide that by 6, because that's the amount of square footage that each child would need in order for you to stay socially distant. So in general, that's the best way to calculate it, and we can help you with doing some of the calculations if you need some help. We have had providers who've contacted us and said, we're an after-school program, or we only offer a mother's morning out program. Are we allowed to apply? If you offer full day care, which is defined as 7 hours a day, then you are eligible to apply. If you used to be a mother's morning out program, but for this period of time you're going to shift and be a full day program, you're eligible to apply. But if what you're considering doing with school age kids is less than 7 hours a day, and is not 5 days a week, then these funds are not available for you, because the entire purpose of these funds was to help families return to work 5 days a week. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. Also, you can visit greenvillefirststeps.org/CARES Act to apply online and to get all of your answers to all of your questions. We thank you and we appreciate the time to watch the video. Again, if we can do anything to help you, let us know. Thanks. Have a great day.